And when they came, it prevents hospitalization, it prevents the risk of severe illness. All of them, blatant lies.
Smiles when he's mad. This is a man who will say literally anything. If the Chinese military unleashed a deadly manufactured flu virus on the world, Joe Biden would blame you for it. And actually, he did. People are dying of COVID, Joe Biden told us, because you have questions about an experimental mRNA shot that doesn't really work and whose long-term effects we can't know. You're the criminal here, not the Chinese government, because you're, quote, unvaccinated. You must be punished. That was the message from the White House, picked up and eagerly disseminated by Biden's equally soulless stooges in the media. And here's one of them, Leana Wen, formerly of abortion giant Planned Parenthood, now of CNN.
We have a very narrow window to tie reopening policy to vaccination status, because otherwise, if everything is reopened, then what's the carrot going to be? How are we going to incentivize people to actually get the vaccine? So that's why I think the CDC and the Biden administration needs to come out a lot bolder and say, if you're vaccinated, you can do all these things. Here are all these freedoms that you have, because otherwise, people are going to go out and enjoy these freedoms anyway.
So the unvaccinated might be, quote, enjoying freedoms, fretted Leana Wen. And everyone knows that under the U.S. Constitution, that's not allowed. Scurry back to your hovel, Kulak. No freedoms for you. The gruel is ladled at 4. Slurp it with gratitude. Oh, what a difference a year makes. Now we know that everything Leana Wen told us on CNN was a lie. And we know that for certain because, amazingly, Leana Wen just admitted it. This week, Wen acknowledged that actually this is not a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It's the opposite. The CDC, she said, has now determined that, quote, vaccinated people who never had COVID were at least 3 times as likely to be infected as unvaccinated people with a prior infection. And a Lancet study, continuing the quote, found that those who were vaccinated but never had COVID were 4 times as likely to have a severe illness resulting in hospitalization or death compared to the unvaccinated who recovered from it. I mean, what? So the vaccinated are 4 times as likely to be hospitalized or die from COVID. 4 times. So it turns out that none of your vax propaganda was true, to put it mildly. It was all a lie. The question is, can we get our lives back now? How about our economy, our jobs? When's the part when you break down in racking sobs of contrition and beg forgiveness for misleading the entire country in matters of life and death and hurting people? We look forward to that part, though obviously we're not holding our breath. For now, it is satisfying enough to see a lie identified.
And so not long ago, Biden's war on the unvaccinated now changed. The narrative then changed. The data they were gathering, and this information is not even known to many. So the pandemic is no longer the pandemic of the unvaccinated that they warred against. They locked them up. Some lost their jobs. They lost access to travel. Some lost virtually everything. Novak Djokovic was denied access to Australia.
Have you received any vaccination against COVID?
I have not.
Why?
I understand that and support fully the freedom to choose, whether you want to get vaccinated or not. And I have not spoken about this before, and I have not disclosed my medical record and my vaccination status because I had the right to keep that private and discreet. But as I see, there's a lot of wrong conclusions and assumptions out there. I think it's important to speak up about that and justify certain things, right? So I was never against vaccination. I understand that globally everyone is trying to put a big effort into handling this virus and seeing hopefully an end soon to this virus. And vaccination is probably the biggest effort that was made. Probably half of the planet was vaccinated. And I fully respect that. But I've always represented and always supported the freedom to choose what you put into your body. And for me, that is essential. It's really the principle of understanding what is right and what is wrong for you. And me as an elite professional athlete, I've always carefully reviewed, assessed everything that comes in from the supplements, food, the water that I drink, or sports drinks, anything really that comes into my body as a fuel. Based on all the informations that I got, I decided not to take the vaccine as of today.
So do you have, as of today?
Yes, I keep my mind open because we are all trying to find collectively a best possible solution to end COVID, right? I mean, no one really wants to be in this kind of situation that we've been in collectively for 2 years. I'm part of a sport, a very global sport that is played every single week in a different location. So, I understand the consequences of my decision. And one of the consequences of my decision was not going to Australia, and I was prepared not to go. And I understand that not being vaccinated today, I'm unable to travel to most of the tournaments at the moment.
And that's the price you're willing to pay?
That is the price that I'm willing to pay.
That the pandemic is no longer the pandemic of the unvaccinated, but rather it is the pandemic of the vaccinated. What is that supposed to mean? It means the more you take the jab, the more you become weaker and susceptible to the contraction and transmission of the variants. So this study tells us that between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, it is rather the unvaccinated who is healthier. His chances of getting infected, his chances of transmission, his chances of hospitalization, his chances of death is far, far, far lower than the jabbed. Can you believe that? And yet they force people. So you have to know the mindset and the one who is at work. In John chapter 10, verse number 10, the Bible tells us, and I want to read that text because it's very, very, very important. In John chapter 10, verse number 10, what does the Bible say? I want to read that one. I'm going off track a little. I didn't put it in. Now in John chapter 10, verse number 10, the Bible tells us that the thief cometh not, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. So that is his nature. So that is how he works. He doesn't care, but he will deceive you into believing his lies. And that is how he works. And then finally, if you fail to comply to his restrictions, all the lies, the final thing to tell us that he's operating, he can watch you die if you fail to go by his rules. And that's what the Bible tells us in Revelation chapter 13. He can watch you die. Let's watch what happened not long ago in Canada. A patient who refused a vaccine was sick and then went to do an organ transplant. They saw that this lady was unvaccinated, this patient was unvaccinated, and they denied him access to that transplant, and then that patient died. The thief cometh not, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. He can watch you die. And that is what the Bible tells us. And let's watch that video to affirm it.
Now to Trudeau's Canada, where craziness is its middle name. Imagine being unvaccinated in Canada and you find out that you need to have an organ transplant, but you are then denied that organ transplant because you are unvaccinated. You decided to not get one of these Pfizer shots, one of these Moderna shots to protect your body. You're denied the organ transplant as a result. Then a member of parliament, a member of Trudeau's government, comes out and says, after she dies for being unable to get this organ transplant, she deserved to die. This is what's happening in Canada. Plus, we've got a renewed push for mask mandates. in Canada. Covering all of these stories for us today is David Craden. He hosts Craden's Right on YouTube. He writes at the Post Millennial and Human Rights, and he joins us now. David, great to see you. This story is outrageous. A member of parliament decides to jump on Twitter after a woman dies from being denied an organ transplant and says, well, she deserved it. She deserved it.
Well, I want to read the tweet, well, as they say now, the post on X. And I know Charlie Angus from my days on Parliament Hill. He always sold himself as a populist, which is why, as a New Democratic member of Parliament, which is the Socialist Party in Canada, he's managed to stay elected in a relatively small C conservative area of Northern Ontario. But recently, Sherry Annette Lewis died about a week ago because she couldn't get an organ transplant. And she was unvaccinated, and that's the only reason she couldn't get an organ transplant. So Charlie Angus decides to post, a woman died because she preferred to fight for disinformation, anti-vax bullshit, and conspiracy. Pierre Poilievre says she is a hero. And the rest of it really isn't related to Sherry Annette Lewis. But that, to me, is just beyond the pale. And it's not just outrageous, it's almost criminal. This is, for a member of parliament to be celebrating somebody dying because she's on the wrong side of the issue, this, to me, is absolutely symbolic of how crazy the authoritarian left has become in Canada. And they'd rather see somebody die because they couldn't get an organ transplant than admit there was absolutely no reason for her to be vaccinated. And that's really the other story here, is that she didn't even get COVID. She was unvaccinated and she didn't get COVID because she had natural immunity to it. And this is how outrageous this is.
What's more outrageous, well, that's outrageous enough, but what's perhaps more outrageous is the idea that you would deny at a national level, I guess, I don't know if it's a national level or provincial level, that you would deny someone getting an organ transplant because they're unvaccinated. What sort of bureaucratic gobbledygook is in place that keeps someone from getting an organ transplant? Where did this come from?
What really infuriates me is that this woman came from Alberta, where supposedly it's the last bastion of the free in Canada. It's the last place where you're allowed to voice dissent, where the premier of that province has previously said that the unvaccinated are the most discriminated against group that she's ever seen in her lifetime.
And then the Harvard University study not long ago was released. The effect of COVID jab on the body, the thrombosis, the blood clots, which occurs in the body. Let me read Revelation chapter 13. He can watch you die. So this is a trial run. This is a precursor to the main thing which is going to happen and which is pending, which is so close to us. In Revelation chapter 13, what does the Bible say? Revelation chapter 13. Does he have that killing mentality? That murderous mentality as we saw in John 8:44? The answer is yes. What does it say? Verse 16. No, verse 15, Revelation 13:15. And he had power to give life unto the image to the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship. You see, the final thing is worship. Now, this was health, and the health is linked to the worship thing. And cause that as many as would not worship the image to the beast should be killed. So they watched a patient die because the patient decided or refused to comply to the official narrative. They watched the patient die. So would they watch people die? Would they kill people? The Bible says yes, it is going to happen. So this is an evidence that what the Bible has said, there is an iota of truth. If they can do this, can they do that? Yes. And this is to tell us, once the right arm, which is health, has manifested itself, the worship thing is just around the corner. And we've started talking about the worship thing and how it is manifested itself. It's how it is manifesting itself in the far right and in the far left movement in America. In our subsequent discussions, we are going to look at that because it is becoming more and more interesting. Europe is turning far right. If Europe has turned far right and France is on the verge of turning far right, something very interesting is happening. And we're going to talk about that in our subsequent discussion. May God help us in Jesus' name. Amen.